Hello. Today I'm going to read you another chapter of Napoleon and Josephine. I'm doing this every month. Now, I used to do it like every other Friday, but I'm actually just doing it every month now. So this is the chapter 4 on heart. I don't remember. Hold on. We did the part 1. Okay, part 1. What? Okay. Okay. Oh, right. So this is Napoleon and Josephine. Napoleon before Josephine in chapter 4. By Horowitz account, the sensible okay pulled into Tarun Harbor on October okay 29 okay 1790. After a close call, a stretch in Gil- Gibraltar, where it ran off where it ran aground off the North American shore and almost capsized. Upon our arrival in Toulon, my mother learned of the events which had recently agitated France. The revolution had broken out. That much her mother had heard even in the far-off Martinique. What she could not have known was that she was sailing back into the very eye of the hurricane. She must have been startled at disembarkation to hear herself addressed for the first time as citizenness instead of this scoundrel, madame. To hear the savage chant of the Tar Ira, the battle hymn of the French Republic, ring out above the din of the dockside disorders, and to see for the first time the tricolour flying of the flagpoles of the harbour forts in place of the white Bourbon lilies, the royal fleur-de-lis. News of the signal events of the preceding year had reached her overseas. Representations of the three estates, clergy, nobility, and commons, summoned to the Versailles as a States General by a desperate, tottering, bankrupt government. The States General transformed into a national assembly dominated by the Third Estate, the Commons, and proceeding with the enforced sanction of the King to frame a constitution for France. The fall of the Bastilla. For the shocking developments of recent months, however, an overseas traveler returning among the Paris road in the early winter of the 1790s was unprepared by the sight of flames and smoke, of Chateau under attack by a peasant, peasantry, what is that word? Peasantry, suddenly enraged at absentee landlords, an age-old feudal tribulations and impositions, prepared for the ominous sound of the tocsin and of the village church bells tolling a summons not to devotion but to insurrection. Paris, the new seat of the Assembly, in the capital and nerve center of a nation in the firmament, was the very last place for members of the detached nobility. The Viscount quickly discovered this, proceeded directly to Fontainebleau to join the Marquis de Bahamas and Renard in their modest quarters. There, too, for a joyous reunion with the mother and sister he adored, came 9-year-old Eugene from his college, Hartcourt, where he had been enrolled by his father. Our father, Hortense noted in her memoirs, with some pride, was already playing a lead role in the party whose cause he had embraced. His brother had chosen the opposite side. Alexandre's elder brother, Francis de Count de Bourskill, I don't know how to pronounce that, a faithful royalist, the royal bar-heartedness, crossed the border into exile and served into service in the armies of the emigre Bourbon princes, while Alexandra, the Viscount de Bahamas, joined the band of noblemen who, on an electoral night of August 4th, 1789, deserted their second estate seats to sit on the benches of the third and joined the commoners, repudiating the feudal system and its fundamental fetes and rushing to the run of its assembly as to an altar of liberty. There, in one of the strangest spectaculars of all, turned to immolate and to renounce their own splendorous birthright of rank and privilege. This becomes less phenomenal when one remembers that in many cases, as in that of the Viscount de Butterness, these aristocrat liberal intelligence of the 18th century were younger sons renouncing the birthright of their elder brothers rather than their own. The erstwhile Viscount de Horace, on his sporadic visits to his father and children at Fontainebleau, held forth extensively and pompously on the popular political doctrine of the day, the establishment of the constitutional monarchy. The erstwhile Viscounts listened more and less attentively, less distributed in Alexander's political theories than in his financial contributions to her support and to the children, as sporadic, unfortunately, as his visit. Elected to the presidency of the Constitution Assembly in 1791. Alexandra proudly occupied the chair during the final draft of the Constitution. It was he who, on June 21st, from that chair, made the announcement of the delegates into the nation that the king and queen and their children have fled the capital. It was he who presided over the uninterrupted 5 days emergency session of the Assembly, and who served as a temporary leaderless France as regent. The pursuit of the royal fugitives were organized by Alexandra. His was the direction for the capture, arrest, and return of the abject royal family. He personally instructed their interrogators and composed the remonstrances to be read to the hapless pair of the monarchs upon their arrival at the Tuileries. With the Constitution completed and accepted by the King on September 14th, 1791, the Assembly declared its work accomplished in its session and end. But Paris' exclusive cry, "The revolution is ended," was premature. Before another 12 months had passed, national rejoicing had turned to national hysteria under the threat of invasion by a military army of the Bourbon princes, calling for vengeance on the rebels, and by the coalition forces of European monarchs, preaching the divine rights of kings, but apparently less eager to protect the sacred person of the French than one to snap up several of his tempting royal provinces. Whatever the motives of the invaders, the reaction within France was violent. By mid-August of 1792, the Tuileries Palace had been mobbed and the king imprisoned in the Temple, the last wayside station on the road to be scaffolded. By the end of September, the first French Republic had been proclaimed by a defiant, defiant national convention and Christianized in blood by rioters of the Paris Commune, who had dragged hundreds of priests and aristocrats and professed conspirators in the invasion from their prison cells to slaughter on the street. Among the victims of these September massacres were friends of the Johan. I don't know how to pronounce these words. Sorry. Terrified by the turn of events and by the mounting alarms of the winter, Marie Josephine of Rose resolved to send Horowitz and Eugene to England in the custody of a friend. The Princess Amelia of Hohenzollern. But before the children could reach the coast, their indignant father ordered them to be returned, and furthermore to be apprenticed to a trade. Like all good little Republicans, Eugene, to a good patriarch of a cabinet maker, Hortense, to a seamstress, a Mademoiselle Lanois, who may or may not have been qualified as such, but who had undoubtedly her governess, who was undoubtedly her governess. If General Bonaparte, Alexandra, had by then exchanged a lofty legislative role for an equally lofty military one, forbade his family to leave the country. He did not oppose a removal from the capital. The suburbans seemed safer at the moment, less racked by tension and by alarm. Marie Josephine Rose chose Crossy apparently tranquil, dozing on the sand 10 miles downstream of Paris. She was grateful to have been out of earshot of the hideous clamor on Paris Place de la Revolution on January 21st, 1793, when Louis XIV mounted the steps to the guillotine. Her father had served his mother as a page, as she could not forget. By the summer of that year, General Bonaparte was commander-in-chief of the French army of the Rhine, a post in which, for the glory of the Republic, he would issue a gush of patriotic pamphlets, proclamations, and orations. He came under criticism by the war missionary not only for his defeat, but for malingering behind the lines, making a fool of himself at Strasbourg by chasing after horses all day and giving balls for them at night. To quote from Army Commissioner's reports, under suspicion, furthermore, along with all aristocrats in the army's upper echelons, General Bonaparte resigned his commission on grounds of illness. The resignation was accepted in August 1793 on grounds of incompetence and a hint of treason. Back on the patriarchal arches of the formal Bonaparte of Bohemia's estate in the Loire Valley, not all his show of reputation, Oriental fever in the community councils and in the local radical Jacobin club could save Alexandra from the grim surveillance of the Committee of Public Safety. The newly organized executive branch, an instrument of terror set up by the National Convention. Marie Josie Rosie did her best to dissipate the cloud of suspension hanging over her husband's head by writing in his behalf the Validator, president of the Dread Committee. There is a book called Dread Nation about that, I think. She went still further, including a plea in behalf of her imprisoned sister-in-law, the Countess de Johannes, well, I can't pronounce that name. With him, she had never even been on terms of intimacy. She signed her name to such a letter to the authorities was to call attention to herself and was thus a violation of the first law of self-preservation. In that previous time when, by a recent enacted law of suspect, any formal title of nobility was a title to suspicion. As a friend of tyranny and an enemy of liberty, a title to arrest, to imprisonment, and to the guillotine. And then, in permanent location and daily operation on the place de la Revolution. Those aristocrats who had not fled the borders had gone underground, shrinking back against the walls. So as not to cast so much as a shadow on Paris's blood-splattered street. Marie Josephine Rosie apostrophizing Vader as a former colleague of Alexandra in the National Assembly urged him not to confuse Alexandra with his brother. He may have reason to doubt the patriotism of the former privileged class, her letter conceded, but surely among them are fast friends of liberty and equality. Okay, hold on. Alexandra had never, alright, had never deviated from those principles. At first he doubted my patriotism, but seeing that I consorted only with Republicans, he was convinced. Mine is a Republican household, and I consigned myself an out-and-out sans cutlet. In so doing, she was claiming to be one of the most rapid patriots who evidenced their extreme left-wing political sentiment, salutatoriously discarding the knee breeches of court attire in favor of a new, long, tight pendulum. If there is a note of panic in her protestations of fervent, fantastic republicanism, the alternative was grim in 1794. Alexandra, in vouching for his wife's patriotism, as her letter to Vador shows he did, may have flattered himself that his orientation had converted her to his ideology. On the other hand, since she is unanimously described by her associates as suggestible, malleable, and plain, he may have been correct. Certainly she was on good terms, and cultivated the society as she claimed. Of many of his friends in the Revolutionary art garde, her second husband, General Bonaparte, would vouch for her, too, as a good patron and a staunch Republican. Even so, with her cruel nonchalance and her aversion to take a stand, as she once expressed it in a letter to Aunt Bernarde, there is room for doubt as to whether she was a woman of strong conviction, political or otherwise. Her letter to Vador proves only that she can achieve fluency in the popular Republican pattern. Her pattern of thought was subjective rather than objective. Her attention wandered from any discussion of abstract ideas. So this is talking about her past husband, I think, like her husband that died before Bonaparte. So yeah. As one of her philosophical-minded friends, Madame de Musat objected. She fidgeted in a dialect. She could not be enlisted in a cause, but she could be moved to warm, quick response by an individual case, by a personal plea, a human interest story. So it was with her good offices in behalf of revolutionary victims, such as her imprisoned sister-in-law and countless others. So it was later with her manifold, tiresome efforts in behalf of the emigrate, those pitiful displaced persons of the 18th century. She was less apt to have been moved by political convictions, more by principle than by her easily stirred emotion, by her ready sympathy and compassion. Historians are prone to disparage Josephina as an opportunist, to say that she changed her political coloring. Okay, I will. I'm almost done. With every change of regime in France, from Bourbon white to revolutionary red to imperial purple, and consistently to her personal advantage. But that she, a feminist soul with two minor children, survived such a series of cataclysmic upheavals seems rather proof of determination, resourcefulness, and ingenuity than of political opportunism. During the Revolution in France, as in America, these were times to try men's soul. Josephina's soul must have been a fiber tougher and more resilient than Napoleon's description of gossamer and lace, for she has endured the long years of revolutionary torment and managed to emerge with relatively minor necrotic tendencies, cheerfulness, fear, and a mild hypochondria, but no cunning of favor with the authorities, no scurrying to the countryside into hiding, no certificate of citizenship at Crossy could guarantee security in the epidemic of arrest and death in 1784. I'm almost done, Bobby. Cucumber or this or what else? Tomato. Or tomato. Yeah. But then when it's a dinosaur, he eats it up because he hates dinosaurs. Yeah. The dictatorship of the fantastic. What? Can you get steady? I will. Not right. Okay. I will. I will. I'm almost done. It's gonna be too long if you redo it. Hold on. Incorruptible. Robespierre had decreed the principle of solitary terror. Terror as the order of the day, a bath of blood, red along with blue, as the revolution. Connors like said about devouring its own children. The convention, convulsed and paralyzed by its internal struggles, seemingly could find no other measure by which to subdue the counter-revolutionary royalist factions on the rampage in the south and the west of France. No other remedy to apply to the national economic collapse. If the people must suffer from famine, inflammation, and unemployment, at least they were to be diverted by a circuit of death. With daily performances in the place de la Revolution in every public square of every city of every province. Word of Alexander's arrest reached his wife in early March, and she rose again to his defense with oral and written pension to every old friend of his or hers who had survived the purge, with no one any longer dared, literally speaking, to risk his neck for any other. Marie Rosie Josephina Rose, as she was shortly to discover, had too impulsively risked her own. And that is the chapter. If you like this, I guess, video, please comment down below or subscribe. Hit, uh, hit the thumbs up button and the bell for notifications. Have a great day, and I hope you liked chapter 4 of, actually, it's like more like part, but chapter 4 of the part of Josephine before Napoleon. And that is it.